yoga, we wanted to keep the theme of our program around the beautiful topic of the true meaning of yoga, a union of spiritual love. And to journey us into this beautiful union of spiritual love, we do have a lovely angel with us this evening, Sister Judi Rich from Calgary. So Judy has been with the Brahma Kumaris for over 25 years, and she currently serves as the center coordinator for the Brahma Kumaris Center in Calgary. In addition to this, Judy does work as a fitness instructor and is a very creative graphic designer. Personally, I had the opportunity to listen to a few sharings by Sister Judy, and each time I listen to her talk, I always leave feeling more inspired and very uplifted by her sharings. So I am very much looking forward to this evening's session, and I'm sure you all are too. So without further ado, very warm welcome, Sister Judy. And on behalf of the Toronto family, a very big thank you from the heart for joining us. And we really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to be with us this evening. So thanks again, and the floor is now yours. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was very sweet. Thank you. It's lovely to be with all of you. Thank you for inviting me. And a big warm welcome from Western Canada. I don't know if I can speak for all of Western Canada, but at least from Calgary. Big warm welcome from here. And it's really a beautiful topic. It's true that tomorrow, June 21st, is International Day of Yoga. And so for many of us, yoga is a daily focus. But on that day, tomorrow, we'll have the support of many souls around the world focusing on yoga. And they all perhaps will be engaging in different activities, their own idea of yoga, which we'll get into in a moment. But, what's the essence of it? So I find it's always nice to start with a bit of a reflection, if that's okay. So I'm going to invite you. The beautiful thing about the yoga we're exploring is you don't have to sit in any pretzel-like position. You can sit comfortably. You do not have to fold your limbs into some crazy configuration. So seated comfortably, but still very engaged, very alert. That feeling that you're about to meet a very important person, which you are. It's the self. So seated comfortably, but in a royal way, an engaged way, I start to focus on the breath of the physical body, the breathing of the lungs, that remarkable, magical act of the lungs taking oxygen in that will nourish the whole body. And then the lungs letting go of what the body no longer can use. And that release of air, that exhale, can help the whole body to relax. And again, another deep breath in. And that slow release of air, feeling any hidden tension in the body starting to melt. And then letting the breath of the body continue automatically as it will on its own. And starting to watch the breath from a distance, as if the body can really breathe on its own without any conscious input from me. That natural rhythm of inhale and exhale. My mind just following the rhythm of the breath until it begins to feel as if my mind is like a boat being carried on the waves of the breath. That very soothing rhythm carrying the boat of my mind. Carrying the boat of my mind away from the shore of familiar thoughts. The usual thoughts I have of day-to-day life, worldly thoughts, habitual thoughts, ordinary thoughts, the mind being carried from that shore of all that is familiar out into an ocean that feels like an ocean of peace. Very calm, gentle passage of my mind riding the waves of the breath. And it begins to feel like those waves of the breath are just turning into a gentle wave of peace, carrying my mind further from those familiar thoughts and deeper within the self. It becomes more and more quiet. The thoughts slow down, fewer thoughts, a deeper sense of calm inside, until I arrive at a very quiet place inside. The boat of my mind stopping there. And I place my attention, my sense of self, in that very quiet place inside, feeling like a very sacred space inside, where my thoughts are different. This is a space that's dedicated to very unique thinking, thoughts about what really matters, thoughts about what is timeless, my own sanctuary inside, where I can know myself on a deeper level. Think about scenes and situations in a different way, and perhaps even invoke the company of the divine. Very much enjoying the calm, the peace, the sacredness of this inner sanctuary, where I can spend quality time with myself. Om Shanti. So welcome again to this topic of yoga, and that's really like our own little inner yoga studio. So Sarah had mentioned that I do fitness instruction. It's one of the strange roles I get to play. And whenever I tell souls this, they always ask, do you teach yoga classes? And I get very confused because I know they might be thinking of a different yoga than the yoga I'm actually involved in, which is Raj Yoga. Very often, especially in the West, when you say yoga, the thoughts go to Hatha Yoga, which we sometimes call more of a physical yoga. Although, of course, there's many other benefits that are beyond physical. But the studio I am with does have physical yoga classes, which I do not teach because I'm not certified in any way with Hatha Yoga. All I know about is Raj Yoga. But I do find it interesting. I have taken Hatha Yoga classes, and I love taking them in the sense, not that I'm particularly accomplished in it, but I just find it so fascinating to be in those Hatha Yoga classes, looking at them through the lens of Raj Yoga. Every single physical posture has some kind of origin in a non-physical place in Raj Yoga. It's quite fascinating. So, this idea of yoga, whatever yoga we're talking about, whether it's Hatha Yoga or a non-physical yoga such as Raj Yoga, it's talking about something going on within the self, some sort of postures within the self in order to attain some healthy outcome, some state of well-being, some healing can happen. So people even take Hatha Yoga classes for the health benefits. So there's this pursuit of well-being, and it has been said that the measure of health, of well-being, is actually the experience of peace. So souls, even in a Hatha Yoga class, although it's physical, they're looking for that deep experience of well-being or peace. And so what is this idea of yoga that perhaps is being pursued physically and which we do in a non-physical way? What does the word actually mean? And how did it land up being a bunch of physical postures? I remember many, many years ago, Aviben, if she's here, might remember, or some of you might remember. I don't know if it still happens. Is there the yoga show in Toronto still? Do you still have the yoga show? Yeah, Veronica might remember this as well. It was decades ago, I think now. And I don't know what I was doing in Toronto.
I don't think it's happening for the past couple of years, few years.
Okay. It was so fascinating. I really enjoyed it. I was really lucky. I got to be there one year for the yoga show. It was an international show that was in different cities, and a few times it was in Toronto. It was a big, big deal. They would bring in big names, big yogi names from around the world, and Nike, Adidas, all the big corporations would show up, and then Bubba would be there in a little stall. And so I was there one year, and there was a couple of scenes that really touched me. One was one of the members of our team was also a journalist, actually a videographer, and he decided to have a little side project where he went and recorded an interview with all the big names that had been invited. And there was one, he was a Westerner, quite well known, lovely soul, and he was being interviewed about his yoga practice. And he was the type that can do those classic Hatha Yoga postures where you wrap your head around your foot and all sorts of things, right? So there's a video showing him doing these remarkable things, but in the interview it was very touching because what he was sharing was that as his body ages, it becomes more and more challenging. It takes more time to do the postures, the asanas. It takes more time. So that piece, he says, it's becoming more and more challenging. And then he added, but my yoga is improving. And I found that really fascinating, that for him, the two were very different things. The postures and then the yoga. And you could tell by the look in his eyes that something quite deep, it was such a gentle feeling, something very deep was happening inside that soul. So I found that very significant. And there is a big difference traditionally between the two that has been lost. The other thing that was very amusing was there was a main stage where you could do demonstrations of your yogic practice. So maybe it was mums and tots yoga or prenatal yoga or whatever. And we wanted to do a demonstration, but as many of you know, this is what our yoga looks like. So 30 minutes of that, I'm not sure it would have worked at that time. It might now, but they were hoping for a little bit more. And they clearly said in the application, you cannot do a dance performance. You cannot do a dance performance. That cannot be your yoga demonstration. Now, at the time, there was a group of, as it turned out, 6 of us who were also dancers. And we had this feeling that we could do this beautiful dance routine, but it wasn't about the dance. It was about yogis who happened to be dancing. So we would be in a state of yoga while we're moving and see if souls got an experience of the yoga rather than the dance. This was our idea, but the instructions said you cannot do a dance performance. But we were bold. So 2 of us, Sister Tanya and myself, showed up at the office of the organizers for this event. 2 lovely, lovely souls, 2 women. We showed up their office. We looked very serious. We were wearing all white kurtas with sunglasses. It was very serious. Got out of the car, went upstairs, had our little ghetto blaster for music, and said, we're here to audition. We know it's not supposed to be dance, but we hope that you can get a sense of what we're actually trying to demonstrate. So we did a very small, maybe 1 minute, 2 minute demonstration of the movement whilst being in a yogi state. And they were very, very close to us. It was in their little office as this was going on. And so the music ended, and it was very quiet, and we were looking at them, and it was very difficult to tell what their thoughts or feelings were. We weren't sure if we were out or in, or so we just sort of all stared at each other for a while. They actually had a little dog in their office, so the dog was kind of walking around us, and we're all staring at each other. And then they started to cry. And we thought, okay, either this is really bad or this is really bad. And they started to cry, and they said, you are definitely in. You are definitely in. And they became our number 1 supporters. When it came time to demonstrate on the stage, they were up there just promoting our demonstration so much. And I realized that whatever had happened, it had maybe touched their heart. You know, and it wasn't sorrow. They weren't crying out of sorrow. You did not get that feeling, but something had happened and touched their heart. And I feel that's the power. That really has a lot to do with the meaning of yoga. I saw in the eyes of that yogi, and I felt it, you know, in their presence at the end of our audition. This magical element of yoga that everyone is desperately trying to connect with. Now, when it comes to a hatha yoga class, traditionally what happens is that you want to be able to, if you will, disconnect a bit from this worldly or physical awareness and have real mastery over the physical senses so that you can go into a state of deep peace. All of those postures are simply to gain mastery over, prepare the self for yoga. It's not the yoga itself. It's just preparation for the yoga. And so the yoga actually starts after Shavasana, which we call corpse pose, or some of us understand as the bodiless state. That's when the heart stuff really happens. But somehow we extracted the physical preparation part and just called it yoga. This is a bit like cutting up all the vegetables and saying, I've cooked. I haven't. That's the preparation for the cooking. So I need to do that preparation sometimes. But eventually, imagine if you could just get right into that Shavasana and be ready to go, right into that bodiless state, and then you're ready to have that mysterious thing called yoga. And so what exactly is this yoga? We seem to enjoy physical kind of concept, maybe because it's easier to bite our teeth into. But what exactly is going on? Yoga itself just means union, to yoke, experience, relationship. So what that suggests is that everybody, in some way, is a yogi. Now, before I came into Raj Yoga, and I will be completely honest, it still happens, I have yoga with chocolate. Yep, I'm a chocolate yogi. It's true, it's gotten better, but I do have yoga with chocolate. In the sense that I think about it with my heart until I have an experience, and the next thing you know, I want to go buy some chocolate. So this idea of having a very deep connection with something, relationship with something, with the heart, such that it transforms how I operate. That's a really powerful connection. Everybody is doing that with something. Many, many do it, have yoga with the past. It's huge. It's huge, having yoga with the past. So deeply experiencing the past that they actually get stuck there. Get very stuck there. Now, I'm embarrassed to use this example, so bear with me. This may not mean anything to many of you, but there was a very popular series called Star Trek. And it had many incarnations. And this is one of the later, more contemporary incarnations. And there was a lovely captain. And he was, I wouldn't say kidnapped, but borrowed for a short period of time by very elevated beings, very wise beings. They were very ethereal. And they were just trying to understand his pain, actually. He didn't even know he was in pain, but they were very sensitive and very wise beings. And so they kind of borrowed him. And one of the questions they asked was, where do you live? And he kind of looked at them and said, well, you know where I live. You just abducted me from my ship. You know exactly where I live. And they said, no, you don't live there. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Of course I live there. They said, no, you don't live there. Where do you live? And he's like, I really don't know what you mean. And they said, well, this is where we think you live. This is what we're seeing. And they showed a scene from his past where actually he lost his wife. Very powerful scene. And he literally was still carrying that. He was having yoga with that constantly, to the point that these subtle beings thought that's where he lives. That's where his heart is. And how it affected the heaviness it created in that soul. Even though he was a wonderful leader, but there was this heaviness. So this deep connection with the heart, such that affects the way I operate, and really, really affects, if you will, the conscious, the subconscious, what's going on. It's a bit like having a pinched nerve all the time. You know, I know some souls, athletes who have these nagging injuries from the past, and it's constantly there, constantly there. It's like moving around with this pinched nerve. And how to heal or transform it has to operate or happen at the level of the heart, since that's where the issue is residing. And so this really is the idea of yoga, very, very deep connection, union at the level of the heart, such that it transforms the way I operate. And there's many different types of yoga, as you say, with people or things or situations. But the beautiful thing I discovered coming into Raj Yoga, there was many beautiful things, but one of the first things that really touched me is that, you know, this idea that yoga can be a practice which is designed to honor, to nurture, to restore one's highest potential. If I'm going to go through a transformation, if I'm going to have yoga with something that will transform me, I would like it to be something that transforms me or restores me to my highest potential. Pure me, authentic me. That would be preferable. And I have come to realize that chocolate is not going to do that. When I was very young, and okay, it's true, it still might be the case, I loved pancakes. Does anyone like pancakes? Am I alone in this? I love pancakes. I will admit I had pancakes this morning, so it carries on. But I ate, and part of it, I was a very, very active child. And for those who know, pancake is a high energy food, especially when you slather butter and syrup on it. So I had lots of pancakes, and I was told by my mother, if you keep eating pancakes, you're going to turn into a pancake. And I really thought, is that supposed to be a threat? Because I don't think it's a bad thing to be a pancake. But the idea being that whatever you're really absorbing that deeply, eventually you become. So I want to be very careful what I have yoga with. I want to have yoga with things that really elevate me, bring out the best in me. And, you know, this is so critical if we're having yoga with things that might pull me back or things that might keep me in a very stuck place. Really checking, what am I having this deep union with? Because it's, again, of the heart. And how did that other hatha yoga kind of emerge? There is a connection. And when we look at Raj Yoga, it really is going to explore 3 unions that will bring out that highest potential. And why do we want to do that? Why do we want to operate at our highest potential, you ask? Why not just carry on in our ordinary way? It turns out that we can't really be happy until we operate at our highest potential. It's really the source of our happiness. We're really at peace with ourselves when we show up in the world in the most beautiful way. We even use the term, you know, if we're in an interaction and we get reactive, maybe a little bit upset, we say, wow, I was really ugly back there, right? So we're very aware of this importance of character in terms of how it makes us feel. And when we show up in our authentic self, we're very happy. So it really is important to us and important to our heart to operate at our highest potential in our actions and interactions. And so for that, to nurture the restoration of our highest potential, 3 unions are going to be required. One is a reunion with the self. And you're thinking, what are you talking about? Of course I'm with myself. I'm right here. It's a bit like Dr. Seuss. Wherever you go, there you are. Well, sort of. Not quite. We have had a bit of a disconnect with our true self. We have a very well-developed image that is overactive a lot of the time, but we kind of have disconnected with our true self. So we'll come back to that. Another union that's very important is with a being that can see us in our most elevated state, because it turns out we actually don't know. We sell ourselves short. We actually don't know what our most elevated state is, what our highest potential is. I remember once I was having to substitute teach a fitness class, and the people in the class were regulars. They have been coming for decades to the same class. And I've seen them for decades take the same class, and they kind of get into this same level of effort. They kind of just operate. And there was one soul in the class, ironically, her name was Angela, very close to Angel, Angela. And she had been coming forever, the same level of effort. But I knew, I just felt there was more in there. I just felt it. And so I got a little bossy, maybe. I sort of said, Angela, I know you've got more in there. I know you do. I believe in you so much. And I was like, she transformed. She went into a whole nother gear. I don't know it. Something came out and then it went back in. It just came out briefly. I was like, wow, has that always been in there? So each have this remarkable depth of capacity for, if you will, goodness that isn't really being activated. So we need a being who can see our true selves. So that's going to be really important, that relationship. And the third one that really I think is so important to all of us is our relationship, our connection, our union with our world, with other beings. We really want to be in harmony with our world. I know sometimes it feels very attractive to go into a cave and stay there, but trust me, it's not. You're going to want to come out at some point and interact again. And again, that happiness we feel when we have harmonious relationships with others, very respectful relationships with others, really makes our hearts sing. So these 3 different unions that we need to explore. And we actually see in Hatha Yoga, there are different postures that are kind of memorials of these 3 different unions. That's what makes it so fascinating. I remember going into a Hatha Yoga class, and the first posture that it starts with, and I don't speak Sanskrit, so I'm afraid I don't actually know the technical names, or if I say them, I'm going to say them so badly. But I believe the first one is Tadasana, which means mountain pose. This is really the starting point. And most people kind of just quickly move through Tadasana and just want to get going, right? But it is so important, that first posture. This is the one that correlates with the reunion with the self. Because Tadasana is all about setting your alignment. You don't add movement until your alignment is accurate. That goes for all movement dynamics, mechanics. You always want the foundation before you add movement. So Tadasana in a Hatha Yoga class is all about taking time to set your alignment, your physical alignment. And this is what in Raj Yoga, or pure yoga, if you will, real yoga for the heart, we have to set our alignment, reunite with the self. What alignment is to the body, awareness is to the soul. So this alignment or awareness, this sense of self. Now, when I was growing up, in this birth, if you will, I grew up in a very eclectic household. It was very mixed on a physical level, which you might be able even to tell from the body. So one parent was in a black body, the other one was in a white body. One parent was short and the other one was tall. One was musical, the other was academic. One was athletic, the other was not. One cooked really well and the other ate really well. So a lot of this went along really well. So it was very, very eclectic. And although that sounds wonderful, it was actually quite confusing. Because much like the Zoom screen in front of you right now, we tend to like to put each other and ourselves in boxes, right? We really like to label and get a handle on each other. Oh, you're female, you're Westerner, you're academic. We love to put each other in boxes. And I was kind of finding myself in a situation that was just outside of the box. Didn't quite know what to do with myself. It was really, I wasn't identifying with any of the available boxes, despite trying. So it was actually very confusing. And I was actually waiting, because you constantly think, who am I? I'm not black. I'm not white. I'm not tall. I'm not short. Who am I? And these are very silly examples, but I think you can see where it's going. And I think many young people struggle with this. And then we become resigned as adults because we don't have any other options. So coming into Raj Yoga, I remember the first lesson where it was said, you are a soul. And it just hit me here, which as it turns out is where the heart is. This thing here is a really not pretty looking muscle. So I really don't think we want to think about that as our heart. It's really not pretty. It doesn't look like that. But right here, this is where the heart is. It really hit me in the heart. when I heard you are a soul. Finally, something that resonated so deeply with who I am. I'm not the physical container, because it doesn't make sense at that level. I am this wonderful spiritual being, and I just loved hearing about myself as a soul. And I think many people do. You know, really so freeing, because it's very heavy and laborious. When I think I'm the body, I have to maintain this thing. I become very sensitive to the criteria of the body, i.e., what would make me valuable if I am the body? I've told this story many times, that you probably can see I have this gap. I'll come in close. I have a gap between my two front teeth. That was not always there. It was after braces. And very often growing up, people would come to me and say, you know, you have a gap between your two front teeth, and you know, you could get that fixed. The idea being that perhaps it was unsightly. And there's no functional problems, so it was fine. I'd be very polite. But one day someone came up to me and said, you know, you have a gap between your two front teeth. I said, I know, and I was waiting for them to tell me I should get it fixed, and they didn't. They said, where I come from, that's a beauty mark. And that's when I realized it's very arbitrary, very arbitrary. Something's valuable over here and it's not valuable over there. We desperately want to experience a sense of our own value, but we keep doing it through the physical package. It's very hard on the heart, extremely hard on the heart to do that to the self. So when I heard you are a soul, you are intrinsically of value. You are always of value. You have these intrinsic and beautiful capacities that are innate to you. Nothing to do with the body, because eventually this body will fall apart. So all the physical things eventually fall apart. All the places that we invest our sense of value, whether it's the body, relationships, possessions, positions at work, all the places, they will come and go. But yes, wherever you go, there you are. Whatever I carry within the self, I the being, that's what makes me valuable. So this reunion with the self, getting to know the self again as a soul, this is the first union. This is Tadasana. And it's called an elevated posture because it's a very elevated sense of self, this mountain pose. So that's the first union that I really want to spend time over and over again with. I never tire from hearing you are a soul. It's like hearing, here's your self-respect back. It's such a beautiful feeling to get to know the self again. We really lost the self. So this is important. And obviously after Tadasana, there's something called Surya Namaskar, salutation of the sun. The second very important union. This idea of, sort of saluting the sun, acknowledging the sun. This series of postures, the flow, that is about reconnecting with the sun. And who is that sun, that ever burning, bright being that I want to reconnect with? It is said that God changes the world with a look, what we call drishti, a look. There is incredible power in being seen or recognized. I think it's one of the deepest forms of love, actually, and it also can become a form of hate. It's that powerful, depending on how you look at the other being or how you are seen in turn. Have you ever had the experience of someone looking at you, shall we say, in a bit of a judgmental way? Have you ever had that experience? And how it actually diminishes the way you operate. And have you had the experience of someone looking at you with so much belief in you, with such beautiful, appreciative feelings? Have you ever had that experience? And that really brings out your best. And I've told this story many times, so go to sleep if you've heard it before, but very quickly. Grade 1. grade 1. We're very easily influenced in grade 1. So I went to a Hebrew school. That's another thing that was going on in the household. One was Anglican, the other was Jewish. So I went to a Hebrew school, and in grade 1, and we had a beautiful grade 1 teacher. So you had one for your English studies and one for your Jewish studies in the afternoon. And my teacher in the morning, Mrs. Tillotson, had been brought out of retirement because she was such a gifted teacher. And I remember so much Mrs. Tillotson. She really touched my heart because her drishti, her vision, was so remarkable. Her eyes literally sparkled. And whenever she looked at any of us, and she looked at us all equally, whatever our behavior, she looked at us as if we were the most precious gems on the planet. The most precious. So every year, once a year, was Parents Can Visit Day, so Parent Visiting Day. So our parents could visit us for the whole day, watch us in the class. They sit at the back of the room in those teeny weeny chairs and watch us. And in the morning we had Mrs. Tillotson. And with Mrs. Tillotson, because of her vision on us, she never had to discipline us. Never, ever disciplined us. In fact, we were all so keen to just catch her signal as to what we should do. She really had to say anything. She just smiled a lot. We would catch her signal. So if her eyes looked to the right, we knew it was story time. And we'd all organize ourselves on the carpet, and we'd try and get the book and make sure her chair is okay. She didn't even have to say anything. We were so in love with her. And it was beautiful. So when our parents watched the class in the morning, they said, "Oh my goodness, our children are little angels. They're all so sweet. You know, we were just the most disciplined, wonderful little beings because of her vision on us. It was magic." And then the afternoon came, and we had our Jewish studies teacher, whose name I can't even remember, I'm ashamed to say. And the people that were brought in for Jewish studies, they weren't trained as teachers. They just were very, very experienced in terms of Jewish law or Jewish knowledge, but they had no training as teachers. So you can imagine their worst nightmare was to be left in a room with a bunch of 6-year-olds and having absolutely no training whatsoever. And so we always could smell that they were absolutely terrified of us, and constantly, I don't even remember anything. They were just disciplining us all the time, yelling at us all the time, this poor teacher. And so our parents in the afternoon were watching the class, and you can imagine what happened. They were like, "Are these the same children? They're like little devils. They're just horrible." You know, it was just chaos. And same children, very different drishti, very different vision. The power of being seen, recognized, understood, nurtured, empowered by a being who sees you as the most valuable thing in existence is incredible. And this is actually what yoga with the Supreme Soul, with the Divine, is about. It's simply about that experience. Having a relationship with a being who really sees how valuable you are as a soul, who really knows your story, who really understands you, who really knows your heart. So it's this beautiful union of hearts being seen, you know, and so many are searching. You know, they're not sure, do I believe in God? Does God exist? And I realize it's not about whether or not one believes in God, but needing to experience God's belief in us. It is such a transformative thing to be seen at such a deep level, to be respected at such a deep level, valued at such a deep level. So this is what Raj Yoga is ultimately about, is that union. But I need to be in alignment. I need to do Tadasana first. I need to be in that spiritual awareness, the awareness of being a soul, in order to really receive what God, the Supreme, is transmitting. You know, he could be sending all sorts of beautiful vibrations your way, and I'm just not receiving them because I'm not on the same wavelength. So it just doesn't happen. So again, alignment is everything. And when we think about how much we worshipped that being, bowed our heads, I remember once being in a funeral service, and it's just the way things worked out. Everyone was, of course, wearing black, and there was a small group of us who were BKs who came. It was a relative of BK who had passed away, and we just had come, so we were all dressed in white, and so we really stood out like a sore thumb. And I remember that moment when, you know, it was said, the pastor was saying, let us all remember God, and all the heads. I looked around, I saw a lot of top of the heads. And then there was the BKs, just kind of heads kind of high, and because our relationship isn't about feeling so unworthy in front of that being. Our relationship is about learning to see, to look that being in the eye, figuratively speaking, to see and be seen. It's a very beautiful reconnection with God, this wonderful, beautiful being whose only function is to see the beauty in you. What a lucky soul that being is. What a great profession to go around and see everyone's beauty. Which brings us to the final union, because we do get to go around and see everyone's beauty. Once we've done Tadasana, Surya Namaskar, that third posture, and I can't remember the Sanskrit, but it's called the stick posture. No one really likes it. It's kind of boring. These are all the boring ones, aren't they? But stick posture, stick for the blind. That everyone really has lost their sight, their sense, and I suppose their mind, but they've really lost their sight. We're all sort of blind to our own greatness, and as a result, we tend to be quite critical of others. We're not really able to see. We look at the package, we look at the actions of others, and that's a very superficial way to look at other people. Really have to look deep, deep when you look at other people. I had a friend who was an architect, very gifted architect, but to make his way, even though he came from an extremely wealthy family, he was absolutely adamant about supporting himself. So to support his way through school, he took jobs in the summer where he became a builder's assistant. He would help go on building crews. Hard work, but that makes him very rare as an architect. He can design and also build what he designs. Very rare combination. So I used to love visiting him. He had this incredible art of driving through a neighborhood and spotting a rundown house that had been completely written off as having no value whatsoever. And he would look at it, and he could see the bones. He could see through the walls. He could see, this is a gem. Has anyone ever seen a gem? Not a jewel, a gem. Have you ever seen a gem? You would probably pass it by. It's very opaque. It just sometimes looks like a stone. So he could see this incredible potential. And I would watch him over time rebuild, renovate, restore this thing, bring it back to its original beauty. And he would really go inside the walls, everything. And by the time he was done, he could sell that house at whatever price he wanted. People would buy it every time. From a complete write-off to the most valuable in the neighborhood. Really remarkable to witness. This is kind of what we ourselves need to go through, this beautiful yogic journey that brings out, educes, draws out our original beauty. And when it does, we begin to see that in others as well. Seeing beauty in others is the foundation of harmonious relationships. You know, to keep thinking about the actions or the past, this will destroy relationships. But to see people, even people I've known forever, as if I'm seeing them for the first time and through such beautiful vision, such beautiful eyes. Constantly this harmonious relationship, and wouldn't we love to be seen that way as well? So these three types of yogas, the first one upon which all the others depend, this reunion with the self, Tadasana, having very elevated awareness of the self through proper alignment, this proper awareness, I am a soul. Now we say that to ourselves, we visualize a point of light, but I want to go into the significance of what it means to say, I am a soul. What does that really mean about the self? That's what soul consciousness is about, that reunion with the self, really getting to know the self and how it touches, already starts to open the heart. That's the beginning, opening the heart. And then this beautiful union with the Supreme Soul, that divine, pure, beautiful being who sees me in my original, valuable state, the jewel that I am. This is what will heal the heart. This yogic capacity of healing, heal the heart, that union with the divine. And after that, there's just generosity of the heart, that harmonious interaction with others, very gracious, very mature, very royal, very generous. There's not even the concept of forgiving. When the heart is so healed and generous, we don't even think of forgiving. There's just understanding, just understanding. So these different practices of yoga that I think have been memorialized on the path, on this path of hatha yoga, but we really get to reclaim through Raj Yoga. So it actually does heal the heart. And the heart, each of us, our heart is actually a keeper. It's this beautiful container of our most noble ideals and ancient memories. So it's a very beautiful capacity within us. And we want a practice that will honor the heart. Again, that highest potential, that memory is recorded within my heart. So I want to heal the heart, open the heart, heal the heart, and allow that fully healed heart to express in such a generous way. So I'm going to end there. It kind of flew by, but I think we went on a bit of a journey of yoga. So I don't know if there's any thoughts or questions, but I will hand it back over to, I think, Veronica?
Yes.
Who I saw earlier today.
Oh, sister, it's such a pleasure to have you here. You can project all that happiness and all that love in your heart. And from the bottom of our heart, we unite our thanks for that beautiful topic that you bring, the union of hearts. And what I really like is a few things I really like, but I really like the only with the soul we can see the true beauty of other. If we don't see the soul, we will never realize who we really are. The original beauty, and that is so amazing because sometimes you don't see. I don't know. I was thinking about you were saying, and I was churning inside, and I say, it's like when you see an antique. Many people throw it away. They say, "Oh, that is all." Throw it away. But when you know from where they come from, how it was made, and the wood and the shape, you see the beauty. I was making a connection with the soul, and when you see others, right? And sometimes people throw away things, and they are a fortune. They cost so much, and they don't know because they don't know the beauty of that piece. So that was my one of my insights that I have from you, and we are spiritual beings. We are not these bodies. We are not these bodies, and we all see the soul of the other. We will see the true beauty. We are not this body, this color, this language. And that brings me to that song that I really love, and it's called I Am Light, because that song really identify me. I am light. That's so beautiful. I hope everyone can listen that song. I am light with the India, I think is the name of the singer. So
Indieri.
India Airy, yes, it's such a beautiful and true song. So yeah, so I want to thank you again, Judi Rich, for this lovely presentation. And I have for you a golden rose.
Wow.
Where is it? And look what I have, so you can have some yoga with.
Oh. You're not helping my yoga with chocolate.
You know, we have something in common. I do yoga with ice cream sometimes, so
Yeah.
yes.
I've gotten over yoga with ice cream. Very sweet in so many
Thank
ways,
you
not just the
very much,
chocolate.
sister. Thank you very much. I hope we can see you again back in our programs. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Very sweet to be
Thank
with you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Didi.
And now we're going to unite our hearts to donate 1 hour of powerful meditation to send peace, love, and healing vibrations to the world. At the end of this hour, we will end with a beautiful, loving song and our upcoming program. So please stay until the end. And thank you for joining us this evening. And we're looking forward to see you again in our next programs. So please donate this hour of powerful meditation for the world. The world needs it now, especially the healing vibration, love and peace, of course. Thank you for coming and have a good evening.